Hello to you. Jesse is out and about and enjoying himself here, playing on kind of like what would be a permanent fixture. Well, it is a permanent fixture here in my home. It's like a jungle gym, you could say, for them to explore and have a look around. Of course, there are many unnatural things here as well, but there are natural things here for them to utilise. They love laying on top of my modem, and that particular area, because it is nice and warm with all the heat coming off the devices. They do like heat. But what I really want to say to you is, when you bring your new snake home, it's not just about what you're going to need for them, because it's all about this too, eventually, that you're going to get to with your snake. So I want to show you a little bit of the snakes being able to enjoy things outside of their enclosure. These things are important to them, to be able to climb, to investigate, to spread out, just to do something different other than what's inside their enclosure. So part 2 of step 2 is what you're going to need in your enclosure, absolutely, but what you're going to need outside of your enclosure, which, as you can see, Jesse is loving and enjoying and relaxing. He is just relaxing. So part 2 is providing the things that you're going to need for your snake come their enclosure. You can set them up in so many different ways. It is unbelievable. It is just imagination and what you think of, and what I'm going to tell you I have noticed that my snakes like and enjoy. And I'm going to tell you as cheaply as possible to do this, because it can get really expensive. I showed you the different various heating devices, and I have each and every one of those. I have for Maya here, who is in a bioactive, which you can do, but don't do that from the very start, or you can, but make sure you do your research and you understand what you need to set up a bioactive. And I do have a video on that, so I'll put the card in for you so you can go back and have a look and just see what it is that you will need to set up a bioactive. But I do, in this particular enclosure, have a heat panel, which you can see up there, and the light is blinking. Now the light is blinking because I do have it connected to a pulse proportional, which I do highly recommend for heat mats, for your heat panels. I'm just going over here to show you this particular one, which is this one, and you can see it pulsing. And that is actually maintaining the heat to the heating device. And that way there is no going colder and then having to warm up again. Now in, of course, Archie's enclosure, and Archie is my rough scale, Maya down here is over the back, but she is in shed currently, so she's just kind of resting, getting ready for her shed, which will be another subject, brief but a subject. He has a deep heat lamp, which I really, really do like. It is connected to a dimming thermostat, which I find is pretty close to the pulse proportional. So this is the actual it's a infrared heat lamp, but it is different to the normal globes that you can get. Now, it has the ability to heat your snake right through, which is actually what a snake actually requires, that heat to get through their muscles. And the normal globes, which I do have one and I'll show you when I get to it, is not doing that. So I am switching over. I also have a T5 in Archie's, and that is giving him his UVB. So that's a T5 6500K, which is just perfect for your snakes. Maya doesn't have it. She has LED lights up there, but it is sustaining live plants that you can see here. They do need light, and that light is enough. A T5 would be way better, and eventually that is, she will have a deep heat lamp, she will have a basking lamp, and she will have her UVB in there as well, being a T5, which is perfectly fine for them. I don't have a basking light set up currently. That is a work in progress as Jesse decides to make his way. Lily also has a deep heat, Lily also has a heat panel, but it is connected up to a dimming thermostat, the one that I showed you, and they come out at about $43 odd. And I've had it connected for like 6 years and it's never ever faulted on me. So I do recommend the no-name brand ones that I'll put the little picture in for you to see. And then you have the on-off, which are okay and come in the much cheaper range. Look, it's not going to hurt your snake to have this. It's just not as efficient as running a pulse proportional, which will cost you $89 or more. The lesser, of course, is your on-offs, which, as I said, I do have one sitting there, and that just runs the heat up here for my snakes when they're out, not connected to their actual enclosure heating. Now, your heat mats come in a variety of wattage. Starts at 5, goes to 7, and then just keeps going up. Of course, the bigger the heat mat, I'll put a picture here for you to see. Of course, the more area it is that we're talking about that it can cover. So such as this particular enclosure, you're going to need the biggest that you can get. Now, having a heat panel also creates ambient heat right throughout the enclosure, which is also important to your snake. You want the hot end to be the temperature that they require to be at to digest their food and to warm up, which gives them the energy that they need to move, to eat, to stay healthy, all those wonderful things. You also need a cooler side. This is a Pani enclosure, and she's a children's python, and that is a warm end and that is a cool end. She also has T5 live plants, even though it's not bioactive, just potted plants sitting in there, and it's probably a little bit dark here, and a deep heat lamp. It's just perfect, and she's thriving and doing very well. So heat mats, yes, perfect for this level of enclosure, perfect for this level of enclosure, for these spotted pythons. Of course, Missy down here, who you cannot see, she's in her favourite hide down there, is also a spotted. She has a heat panel, which is on a stop-start. That's basically how the enclosure came, but I will be changing that up for Ishi. so I haven't done very much with it. But as you can see, she has plenty of things to climb on, and she climbs on everything. Maya, she will climb, but not like Ishi. Maya gets up under a heat over here, and she comes over here and she cools off. Currently she's on the ground because there's a lot of moisture in the ground, and she is actually in sheds. So she's smart enough to know where to lay and how to go through that process. Now, I do recommend seagrass mats if you can get them. Here in Australia, they're like $3, I think, to buy. So they are so cheap to create hammocks for them, and every one of my snakes has it, and every one of my snakes love it. They also love their branches. The foliage, as I said, create places where they can hide so that when they come out they feel safe and secure. Your little ones. Yes, people will put a young one in an enclosure this size. For example, a jungle, a coastal. I probably wouldn't recommend for a little Antaresia, but certainly for our bigger breeds of carpet pythons. And as I said, coverage is so important. Hiding places for them to hide. Plenty of hides. Put 3 or 4 jotted out through the enclosure. Make sure they cannot fit between the glass sliding doors here. You can put some foam in there to prevent that from happening. Cover up any holes that you've used or drilled to put your cords through. Make sure that they cannot get out of that, because they will. And it's not about the escape. It's more about there's a hole there, I can go through it. It's not, I need to get out of this thing. It's got nothing to do with that. So be safe and cover in all those holes. I said cover in 2 sides, and I meant to say the back and the 2 sides. Only have the frontage where there's view. Most of my enclosures, and I'm guessing many enclosures that people do, are up against a wall, so that's not open to viewing. I do not recommend you putting your snakes somewhere where it's quiet and there's no noise. I recommend you have them out where there is movement, sound, you being there, watching them, taking notice of them, of what they're doing. I love watching Jesse climb. I love watching what he's doing, where he's going. I also love watching what they do in their enclosures, where their favourite spot is, what their favourite hide is. Like, they find favourite things. Take note of it. You know, sometimes you give them a hide as a baby and they don't want to part with that hide. You put a new hide in there and they're like, They'll sit outside it, they'll avoid it. It can take them quite a while to readjust to a new hide. They'll try and squeeze themselves into that old hide, and it will be up in the air and half of them will be sticking out, and they don't care. Their head's in there, they can't see you. It's a little bit like you can't see me, and it's so funny to see. So they know. They remember things. Just remember that, and don't be concerned if they're a little bit too small for it. Let them grow out of it. Let half of them stick out of it if they want to. So long as they're on their heat and they're keeping warm, it really doesn't matter in the end. Now I will show you the globe that I'm talking about, which is an infrared, but not a deep heat, of course. And this is I have to stop and think, sorry, Car's enclosure. And you will see the infrared globe up there. The only reason that is there is because I can't fit any other in that particular cage. And you need to have it covered, because snakes, little ones especially, will go to it because it's warm. they will wrap themselves around, and when it heats up, because their brain takes a longer process to think about burning, they're burnt, and that can lead to disaster. It's like a little toddler touching the stove. We react and we take our fingers off really fast. A toddler doesn't, and by the time they realise their little fingers are blistered and burnt. Well, that is the same for snakes. So make sure you buy caging or protection around the globes and keep your snakes safe. Many people have lost snakes because of not putting covers on their globes, their heat globes. Little Oscar here, well, he's a bit older, doesn't need as much coverage as the younger ones. He's sort of outgrown that type of thing, but as you can see, he loves to sit up on his branches, he loves to perch. Make everything available, everything possible that you can think of that they might like. Like I found this particular pot that is meant for a plant, but I also saw it as, wow, I really think that my snakes would really enjoy that. And Amaya does, who is my Darwin albino. Now he's got to a size he can't fit in there anymore, but I tell you, he gets half his body in, and then the other half of him kind of hangs out on the core branch there. He doesn't care so long as he's got part of himself in there. He's got plenty of coverage. He has very dim lighting because his eyes, bright lights really do irritate him, and that's something that you might find if you get an albino. So please be aware of that, and I would say put dimmer lighting in their enclosure. Think ahead, because they can have issues with their eyesight, and you can still visually see the snake anyway, even with warm lights. They're not, you know, the cool lighting. I went with the warm lights for my albino. Tessa, of course, has heaps of things. I bought bamboo sticks from the hardware. They were like $4 each. I bought shelving, a little bit more expensive, but works really well. And she loves laying on her shelving. Half a stool for her to just climb on, support herself on. She, as you can see, has hammocks as well, which she utilises all the time. Also over here, well, behind DER's sticker there, and Redstrom's sticker up there. So thermal regulating, give them the availability to do so. That is very important. Know the heat that they require, the temperature of the heat they require. Buy a digital thermometer, well, I don't know what you call it, but digital reader, which I have one right here that I use, and that way I can actually point it at an object, and as you can see, it's 25.6. So this is what you can use throughout your enclosure. Check the warm end, the middle, and the other end, and you'll know exactly the temperatures throughout your enclosure for your snake. Now you can also, when I say putting a snake into a big enclosure like this, you've brought them home, you've set them up in a tub, move that, or a much smaller enclosure even, move it and put it in to their new enclosure. Take the lid off and let them decide when they're going to come in and out, or whatever they're going to do. They might come out and explore, but they go back into their little enclosure and they curl up in their hide. But then at night they might come out and venture out and explore the bigger enclosure until eventually they come out and they explore it all the time and they end up being out and they never go back into the little one that you've put. And if you've used a tub, do exactly the same thing. Put it into the enclosure, take the lid off. You can find these baskets in Kmart, Target. Cut an opening, turns into a hide. Cardboard boxes. It doesn't matter what it is, because your snake doesn't care what it is, so long as it does what it is that they are needing you to do. So don't think it has to be all expensive. Your expenses are going to be what you use for heating. A globe like that, a heat panel, a heat mat, deep heat lamps. I don't care what you use. They will all do what it is that you need them to do. Thermostats, there's a variety, the same. I suggest you go pulse proportional or dimming at least for your globes. It's worth the money. UVB, everything needs a cage around it. As you can see, there is a cage at the back for his UVB light. Hides, plants, branches, anything. You know, I've got a artificial plant in a pot that just sits in there. You know, a pony can go through it, can crawl through it, can crawl on it. You know, anything like that. Use your imagination, but get your heating right, your humidity right, your substrate. That can be newspaper. It can be just plain white paper. It can be, I use hemp bedding, aspen. There are so many different varieties out there. I just find the hemp to be more financially viable for me. You get a big bale of it for about $23. My snakes have been on it for a long time now, and they're all doing very well on it, so fine. I have actually, for Lily, put a roll of cork as her base in her enclosure, as you can see. Now, I haven't sealed it, and people might be scratching their head and going, what if she makes a mess on it? What do you get? Because it'll seep in. I know that. Lily never messes in her enclosure. She always lets me know that she needs to go outside and go to the toilet. So I don't have a problem. But you could buy it, buy a sealant that is aquarium, so that you know it's fine for your snakes to be on, if you choose to go with that. And I would. Lily, I've never seen sleep down in the bottom hide. When I put that cork in, she never left it. She was in that bottom hide sleeping all of the time. So I kind of realised she doesn't mind it at all. Cheap, $9 a roll. Yeah, I need 2 rolls of it, $18, but it'll last for a long time if you seal it. And it looks quite natural on the bottom of their enclosure, as you can see. So easy to clean, easy to wipe, but remember, seal it. You have the opportunity to take your time before you go putting your snake in your enclosure. Every time you're out, have a look around for things, find things, go, that would look really good. Some rocks, smooth rocks for them to crawl on. Anything that they can crawl on, of course, that is safe for them. So I hope this has helped with the part 2 of step 2, going into a little bit more detail. So I'll be going on to step 3 soon. You all take care. From Jesse, who is up there, he's going to find himself a nice comfortable place to curl up, and it always has to be as high as he possibly can go, of course, which means I have to go high and get him down. Take care. Ciao.